Awesome. All right. So where we're going to be picking up today is on page 60, and we're right after the three pertinent ideas. So page 60, right after the ABCs. And just a very quick little bit of review. When we talk about the ABCs, what they are laying down, the information that they are giving us is the information about step one. That step one idea that I don't know. Did you come on too late for Rob's post? You might have, but I'm sure Rob will put it in the chat again. Sorry, I just made so much work for everyone. Rob got you. He's the best. And he'd do that even if I didn't say that. I'm not buttering him up. He's just very helpful. Alrighty. So the first pertinent idea that I am an alcoholic and could not manage my own life. And that is a step one idea, or an addict or a compulsive, whatever brings you to this all-inclusive study. The second pertinent idea is that no human power could have relieved my alcoholism or my addiction or my compulsive, what brings you to this study. Now that is also a step one idea, because in step one, I need to see that I am beyond human aid. That's what we're looking for. And see that God could and would if he were sought. And so that is a step two idea, that there could be a power, but I've got to seek it. And what we're going to do in step three is we're going to make a decision to seek. So being convinced, we were at step three, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that, and what do we do? And what I want to point out is step three is simply a decision. I won't say just, because it's a pretty big one. Actually, anyone come to the rooms and hear like, oh, don't make any major decisions in your first year? Have a look at that third step. Am I right, guys? Like, whoa, that's a big one. So the thrust of what the third step is simply a decision. And it is a decision to turn our will and our life over to God. So I'm going to be a little pedantic, but not all the way pedantic, just a smidge. So my will and my life, they do not get turned over in the third step. My will and my life get turned over as I follow through on my commitment to the third step. Bear with me. I'm a do a metaphor. Some of you are not surprised. So I was just out in Vancouver, and in the first step, what is asked of me is to believe that if I stay in Calgary, Alberta, I'm going to drink again and I'm going to die. That's where I live. I live in Calgary. So step one is the concession that if I stay where I am at, I'm going to relapse. That's step one. Step two is about believing Vancouver exists. I don't have to know anything about Vancouver. I can have opinions about Vancouver. I don't. I can think Vancouver sucks. I can think it's too rainy. No opinions. But I just need to believe that it exists. That's it. That is the only thing that is asked of me in the second step. Now, I always like to point out, it would be a little rude of me if y'all were talking about going to the international AA convention, and I'm like, that's not a real place. And then I know we got some people from Vancouver. And so it'd be a little rude if I'm like, I know you believe in Vancouver, but I don't. It's not. And I just gaslight you. Like, it's not real. It's like, girl, I live here. Like, why are you picking on me? Right? And the third step is a decision to go to Vancouver. And so I was invited to go speak at this conference. And when I said yes, I made that decision to go. But if I did not purchase a plane ticket, if I did not get to the airport, if I did not go through security, if I did not get to my gate, if I did not get on my plane, if I did not land in the airport, I would not have gone to Vancouver, and the committee would not have been very happy with me, So I need to follow that decision up with action. So what is the third step? The third step is very simply a decision to work these 12 steps as a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does. And when I work these steps, take the actions of the steps as they are laid out in this book, what happens is my will and my life gets turned over to this power. So it doesn't happen in the third step. It happens when I take this course of action. And a lot of times people say that my will is my thoughts and my life is my actions. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but sometimes I like to be a little bit of a contrarian and stir things up. Not too much, though, because I still need you to like me. I haven't overcome that. That has not been removed, so not too much. But I was working with a sponsee of mine, and it was my sponsee that shared with me, what if my will was my actions and my life was the result? And that was something that resonated deeply with me, especially if you know what it is like to wake up in the mornings and have the thoughts already going, the little committee that's, oh, and like, I'll tell you, when I am not on the spiritual beam, my eyes are not even open. I'm not fully into consciousness. And what is going in my brain is I effing hate myself. I effing hate myself. I'm the biggest piece of garbage that ever lived. That is my default internal dialogue, internal monologue. That is how my brain works. I don't know about you. I can't overcome my thinking with my thinking. I got to change my thinking as the result of my actions, or at least that's been my experience. But listen, if you like to use that my will is my thinking and my life is my actions, do it. That is not a hill that I die on. I just sometimes see things in a weird way, and there was a lot of stuff when I came to AA that I couldn't quite get my hands on. I couldn't quite grasp. Another one of those, I know it's a tangent, but it's coming back to the third step. Bear with me, bear with me. I'm sure nobody knows what it is like to go to a meeting after meeting and have the same problem that we maybe emotionally regurgitate in the room. I know, not you guys, but been there a time or two. I got that same one. And then some old timer who's probably sick of me, and I can't figure out why, comes up and is like, Paige, you gotta let go and let God. And I'm like, yes, that's it. Yes, I will let go and let God. And I don't know how to do that, but I don't want to continue to ask questions with this guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, because I don't want to admit that I don't know. Like, how often have we been told, let go, let God? I don't know how to do that. And I will tell you the answer, or at least the answer that I have found as to how I let go and let God. Because I let go and let God by beginning to write inventory. That's really, and I genuinely mean that. And I know that there are people like, oh no, but it really is. The process of the 12 steps is what allows me to let go of the delusion and the illusion of control and let this power flow through me. When we talk about let go, let God, it's not like I'm letting go and letting God over there, like doing a Hail Mary pass. What it is for me is I let go and I get myself out of the way. And I let that power, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe flow through me. But to get me out of the way, I got to take the actions, especially 4 through 9. So just what do we mean by that and what do we do? Which is good. So that's the problem. We don't know how to we don't know how to turn our will over. We don't know how to do it. So it's going to give us some information. So it says the first requirement. Oh man, there's something that's going to be required of me. I got to take action. Not cool. But the first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. So that is the first thing that I need to be convinced of. And welcome those that just joined us. We're still on page 60. We haven't gone far. You haven't missed much. I'm glad you're here. So I need to be convinced that any life run on self-will cannot be a success. Now, how I would read that for a long, long time was any life. My life as an alcoholic, my life as an addict, run on self-will. But even those non-alcoholics, non-addicts, those normal, functional people running on self-will cannot work. But it was actually Bill. Bill, I give you the credit. I always give credit. So Bill pointed out that it is any life. And I don't know about you, but I come to the rooms with many lives. I come to the rooms with, my alcoholic life, my drug addict life. I come to the rooms with a thought life, which I didn't know I had. I come to the rooms with a work life, work-life balance. I come with family life. I come with maybe like hobbies or recreation, relationship life. I have these various lives. And that idea that any of those lives, with me running by self-will, is not going to be a success. That's what I need to be convinced of. And so that's what we're talking about. And one of the things that I love about that idea is because for me, the 12 steps are not something that I talk about in between the prayers of a meeting. And of course, that is what I meant to talk about in between the prayers of the meeting. But more importantly, it is how I live my life outside of the prayers of the meeting. And it's not like, oh, I practice recovery a little over here, but then I gotta listen, I gotta do work here. No, these 12 steps are how I live in all areas of my life. So it's I've got to be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. And one of the things I'll point out is it can be incredibly powerful to read these next few pages in either first person, as in the first requirement is that I be convinced that my life run on self-will can hardly be a success. So that way, but we can also throw in our names. So the first requirement is that Paige be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. And that's a really cool way to have an experience with these pages and to feel a little called out, like, oh, you're calling me out, So I'm not going to read it that way, but I just want to share that with you, just because it's a whole lot of balls to juggle. So it says, on that basis, the basis of me trying to run and manage my life and my lives, on that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Oh, man. You know what's interesting about that? I show up to life with the best motives. Genuinely, I want to do the right thing. I want to help people. I have good motives. And yet I'm still in collision. And what that collision looks like is conflict, friction, like things just aren't flowing. Do you guys know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. And it's like, is that my experience? And we're not just talking about drinking. Is that my experience in life? Is that my experience? That's what we're talking about. Even though our motives are good, man. And I talk about this quite a bit. Oftentimes in 12 step, we're like, we got to have good motives. And I'm like, no, we don't. No, we don't. Anyone here come to the rooms at 12 step with good motives? Anyone really come with good motives? No, you didn't. Maybe you did. Maybe you did. You know what I mean? But so often we come here, we want to get Bill came here with good motives. He's a saint the whole time. Saint Bill. Love you, Bill. It's glowing. But like, we don't come with good motives. Man, my motives don't matter as much as I think they do. My experience is if I take the spiritual actions of the 12 steps, even with garbage motives, if I take them and continue to take them, a change will happen to me. Heck, it'll happen to me against my own will, against my own better judgment. I will be the person I always wanted to be if I take the action. But I can have the best motives. And if I'm running the show, trying to do it my way, trying to control, it's friction. It's collision. It doesn't work. And it goes on to say each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. And so in this metaphor, let's imagine that we are all in a play. Now, let's imagine that the play is Romeo and Juliet, shall we? Now, some of you who were not skipping on your high school English class so you could smoke cigarettes, no judgment. Some of you are like, wait a minute, Paige, that play does not have a happy ending. I'm like, I know, I'm here for the drama. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes. And actually, after I was speaking at the roundup, two separate people came up and told me that, Paige, you should do Shakespeare. Little did they know, I tried. I tried. And I will say this is why Vancouver has my heart, because in Calgary, where I live, the closest I got to that is they're like, Paige, you got real theater kid energy. That is not a compliment. If you're like, I don't know what that means, I will assure you it wasn't, it was not a compliment. But let's imagine that we're in a play, and the play is Romeo and Juliet. Now, I think I'm rocking some Juliet vibes. You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that's what I should be. Cat, that's my role. I am cast as tree number 3. And so what I'm doing is I am tree number 3, and I am trying to act the director. And I am trying to tell other people what to do. I'm saying, you go there, you stand there, you say this, you do that. And I want to point this out, even with the best motives. And already you guys are like, ooh, yeah, don't be telling me what to do, you know? And so that's I'm setting the stage for this metaphor. There was a pun in there, and that was an intended pun. I don't back away from puns. I lean into those. Why am I like? I didn't get a good sleep last night. I'm a little extra. So, theater kid energy radiating. All right. So, if his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. So I'm trying to tell you what the lighting needs to be. I'm trying to tell you what your cues, what your marks, your lines are supposed to be. Now keep in mind, I'm tree number 3. I don't have the lighting cues. I don't have the full script. I don't know where the marks are. I don't know what the props are supposed to be. I don't know the set changes, but I'm showing up and I'm telling you what I think it needs to be. And I am utterly convinced that my happiness lies in getting you to change and do the things I need you to do. If only you would change, if only you would be different, then I could be okay. It goes on to say everybody, including himself, would be pleased. I mean, if you all just did what I wanted you to do, you would be happy. And what a strange byproduct of that is I would also be happy. An unintended consequence. Oh, right. And that's how I'm showing up to life, and I can't see it. So it says, life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. And so that'll be Bill on with his halo. I'm just teasing. But virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest or self-sacrificing. So I'm showing up. I am kind. I am patient. I am loving. And I'm like, I need you to say this, and you need this. And Juliet, you got to. I'm going to be real nice as I ask you to scooch out of the way as I'm shimmying because I'm a tree. As I shimmy to center stage with Romeo, like. That's what I'm doing. I'm being nice about it, and I'm being kind about it, and I'm being virtuous, and I want the best for you. And like, clearly it'd be better for that Romeo guy if Juliet would get out of the picture and catch the feels for tree number 3. I have this plan, and I'm being nice about it. And then it says, on the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. So I might show up kind because I want to get my way, or I might show up like an ogre trying to control and manage to get my way. But I'm still trying to control the people around me, the things around me, the situation. And it says, what usually happens? So is this not my experience? So I'm showing up to life trying to control and manage. I'm trying to tree number 3. Well, I'm trying to direct her as tree number 3. What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. I am shocked. They didn't think my alternative polka music would not go well with Shakespeare. What do you mean the play doesn't go off very well? I thought it would be great. It doesn't work. And we can ask ourselves, is that my experience? Is that my life right now? It's not working. I have good motives. I want to do well. Heck, I'm not even being mean about it, but it's not working. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. Oh, it's so unfair. And I fall into that. That's self-pity. He decides to exert himself more. So I am going to use more of myself and more of my self-will to try to get the result that I want and the result that I think I need. And it is the wildest thing because I cannot exert self upon self to overcome self, but I always want to try. I always want to try. So I'm going to be, it says he decides to exert himself more. He becomes on the next occasion still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Oh, and I will tell you just from experience, it is a pain in the butt when you write in your own inventory and you see, oh, I was trying to be gracious so I could get my way. Oh, I was doing that. Demanding, fair enough. Fair enough. I can see that. But when I see that I have been gracious in trying to control the outcome, you pulled my covers. And it says, still the play does not suit him. And what we're seeing is I'm exerting self and I'm still not getting results. And I'm telling him the alt polka, it's got to be louder. You got to get there. We got to change the sets. And I am working hard and I'm doing a lot, but it's not working. It says admitting he may be somewhat at fault, got a little bit of self-awareness. He is sure that other people are more to blame. If you only did this and that, you know what? Yeah. What it says, he becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm beginning to come to the end of myself. And it says, what is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? Now, I won't ask for a show of hands on this because I'm going to do a thing. But anyone here, again, you don't have to do a show of hands. Anyone here would describe themselves as a people pleaser? Don't feel like I'm gonna do. Yeah, all right. That's very brave of you, knowing that I'm gonna do a thing. And yeah. I've got some news. If you're like me, you're not a people pleaser. Because I let me tell you, I was a people pleaser. You know how I know I'm not a people pleaser? Is I don't actually care if they're pleased. I don't care. What do I care about? If they like me. You see, I'm not a people pleaser. I'm a validation and then a word that starts with W that I'm not going to say. That's what I am. But instead of saying that, what I will say is a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind. I'm doing these things just so you like me, just so you approve of me, just so I get that validation. That's what I'm doing. Rude. Rude to call me out like that. So, and then it says, is he not a victim of the delusion? Now, previously, when we've seen this word delusion, and we've seen it used again and again and again, this word delusion has been hammered home in reference to the obsession of the mind, which is the thought that I have when I am sober that tells me this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I'll just have 3 drinks. My problem was alcohol, but I can smoke crack like a lady. Pinkies up, you guys know. Or yeah. Like that thought that's on me, whatever it is, that thought that takes me back again and again to the first drink, the first drug, the first compulsive behavior. That is what delusion is in reference to. Now, in this sentence, we aren't talking about that, but what we are pointing to is something as insane as taking the first drink or taking the first drug or placing the first compulsive bet or having the first compulsive bite. This is as insane as that. So are we not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? Now, the word rest, what it means is to take by force. And rest is the root word of the word wrestle. And is it not a little intuitive that you cannot wrestle satisfaction and happiness out of life by just managing well? Actually, anyone that has ever had siblings, You guys, you know when you were like, this is a memory. You know when you would wrestle with your sibling for a toy, and then you got the toy, and then your sibling pretended that they were way more hurt than they actually were, and then mom, you know that. That's what it's like. I can't get satisfaction and happiness from life this way. It's intuitive that satisfaction and happiness cannot come from closed fists. And so what do I need to do? Well, what I need to do in the rooms of 12 step is I need to drop the W. I'm no longer wrestling. I'm not resting with the W. I let go of the W and I rest. And this might seem strange, but the spiritual journey is a lot like a lazy river. I have a sponsee that like just loved that metaphor of the lazy river, where I'm not trying to swim upstream. I take this course of action, and this course of action allows me to, as they would say, go with the flow. So it says, rest, satisfaction, and happiness out of this world if he only manages as well. And it's, is it not evident to the rest of the players that these are the things he wants? Is it not apparent to the rest of the stage production of Romeo and Juliet that I need to get a little cozy with Romeo, that I need to be over there, and that this person needs to go there, and the Montagues and the Capulets, they should just get along, you know, and I'm trying to fix it. By the way, I feel great that I remembered that. That is some, oh, I got some brain cells left, you know, Montagues, Capulets, oh, that's in there. You know, so it's that idea that like I'm this tree number 3. I don't have the full script. I don't know the lighting cues. I don't know the stage productions. I don't know the sets. All I have on my piece of paper is my lines, and my lines are swaying the breeze. And what is happening is I am trying to exert self to control this whole play. I don't have the power. I don't have the authority. I'm being kind or I'm being mean, and it's not working. And when it says, and do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show. See, what happens is I'm showing up and I'm trying to control things, and all I'm seeing is that the world is not working. And then people start to strike back and step on my toes. And that's all I see. But that is how I am perceived by others when I'm trying to be the director and run the whole show. And it says, so, and do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? And I can look at my life and I can look at the things that I've tried to manage and control, and has it not just led to like it not working? Or if it works, I mean, just barely, and at what cost? And so what are we going to do in the third step? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm no longer going to be the director. By the way, I wasn't the director to begin with. I literally took a chair and wrote director and decided to try and sit on it, which was very hard because again, I'm in a tree costume. That's the visual, you know, and I'm like trying to run the show. Like nobody made me the director, so I'm going to stop being the director. Which what a sacrifice to step down from my self-appointed role. And if you've ever been on stage, even for like a holiday pageant or, you know, just as a kid, you know that when the lights are on you, you can't see out into the audience. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to, in this moment, trust that there is a director. And that director is sitting right in the middle, the perfect spot in the house, right in the middle of the audience. And that director has the full script, knows what's supposed to happen, how it's supposed to work out. That director knows the lighting cues, the sound cues. I guess it's not going to be alternative polka, rude. It knows where the sets are supposed to be moved. The director knows the costuming, the makeup, knows all of it. And what I need to do is I need to let that director be the director. And what I am going to do is I'm going to follow my line. And in 12 step, what are my lines? Well, the first line that I have is to draw the lines on a piece of paper to begin my fourth column or my 4-column inventory. That's my lines, is to dive into step 4, then to do a 5th step. It's quiet hours, 6 and 7, make amends. Those are my lines. Go pray, meditate, continue that process, work with others. Those are my lines. That's what I'm doing. So I'm letting go of the delusion and illusion of control. And I'm going to work these 12 steps. And I'm going to leave the outcome in the director's hands. But now let's go back to the metaphor. I'm tree number 3, and I'm going to stand where I'm supposed to stand. And I am going to read my lines. Again, what are my lines? Sway in the breeze, right? Those were my lines. And if you guys remember when we were talking in step 2 about we agnostics, and one of the main things that was happening in we agnostics is we're taking the arguments about I can't see God, and we're flipping it on its head. And it's that idea of I can't see God just like I cannot see the wind, but I can feel the wind. And I can see the effects of the wind. And if you look closely enough, you can absolutely see the wind. And so what is my job? Just like the breeze through the trees is to be an expression of God's love. Those are my lines. So that, like, I even made this little design that says happy to be tree number 3, like that, because I am fun. That is what I am called to do. That is who I am called to be. I'm not the director. I'm just going to be tree number 3, to be the expression of that power's love, that power's grace. And how I do that. The next action that I do is I write inventory. Those are my lines. So it says our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. Now, here's the thing. I came to the rooms and people would talk about we are self-centered people. And I was like, oh, I can see that's quite apparent for you. We'll get to selfishness, self-centeredness. That's the root of your troubles. Accurate, but you don't understand me. See, I misunderstood what we were talking about when we were talking about self-centeredness. I thought self-centeredness was like, if you guys remember that episode of The Simpsons when Bart was little, and it was right before Lisa was born, and he was experiencing that, like, he's got pots and pans and he's going around banging. I am so great. Everybody loves me. I am so great. I thought that's what it meant to be self-centered, that I was showing up, here I am, world, you're welcome. And that is not my experience. My experience is that I hated myself with a vitriol that is unparalleled. Man, genuinely, I've shared this a number of times, but for those that don't know, I have a friend of mine, and she said when I first met you, and I'll let you know, when I first met you was like year 2 or 3 of sobriety. She said, when I first met you, you were the most. So the real takeaway is that I win. That's the win. I'm the most negative and self-centered, not negative, negative and self-deprecating person that I had ever met. I win. Like, that's who I was. That's who I was. And that is me being self-centered. See, the self-centeredness is what is my attention, my focus. What am I centered on? And it was never, I am so great and big and wonderful. It is, I am the biggest piece of garbage that ever lived. I hate myself. I am centered on self. So I didn't have that better than ego, but I had a lot of, I am the worst person. So I'm centered on me. That's self-centeredness. And then egocentric, centered upon my ego. In my case, it was that less than ego. I'm not enough. It's as people like to call it nowadays. He is like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation. And I'm going to point something out about this businessman in Florida. Because here's, like, I was saying, like, I come back, it's 2 degrees Celsius, we have sleet, the weather is not great. Listen, I will come to Florida. Actually, you guys know it takes nothing for me to I'll stay with Brett. She said I can. But like, I will imagine, and let's imagine like some Canadian winters, and then you go down to Florida, and imagine you're on that white sandy beach, and there's palm trees. There's a roseate spoonbill flying in the distance. That's for Brett. Nobody else is like, what? But white sandy beaches, the palm trees, the ocean waves that are lapping at the sand. And where is that businessman? He's not there. He's in here, complaining about everything that's going wrong, that he's got no power to control or manage. Anyone knows what that's like? I was working with a sponsee of mine a couple years ago, and it was right before he did. He ended up doing a 10-month tour of Southeast Asia. And he had just gone through a breakup, and we are going through a set of steps together. And really the what we were trying to get to is that place of like, listen, if you are not happy here, you will not be happy there. You see, I don't know about you. You could take me to Disneyland. Is that the one in Florida? Because I should keep it the Florida theme. I shouldn't do the Disney. No, Disney World, not Disneyland. That's California. Love California too. I'll go there too. Give me a place to crash. I'll travel. That's actually the takeaway is I'll travel. I'll come visit. So I'd be in Disney, the happiest place on earth, and think my way into suicidal ideation. That is who I am on my own power. That is how I live my life. But I promise you, you could be in Des Moines, Iowa. And by the way, I would love to go to Des Moines. I am not shading Des Moines. But you could go to Des Moines, Iowa, and connected with this power and full of joy. And that is my experience. So that's the Florida guy. And so it says the minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. And now bear with me, you guys might be like, what? The minister who's judging? Fair enough, right? But that minister is looking over the sins of the world and unable to do anything about his own sins. Bear with me. Now, I know nobody here can relate to this. None of you would ever do this. But you know that thing, not you guys, but you know that thing when other people go to meetings and then they judge everyone in the meeting and their defects of character, and you go home and you're alone and you're stuck with your defects of character? You know what I mean? I'm sitting there judging yours and I can't do anything about mine. And it says politicians, reformers who are sure all would be utopia. Now, utopia is a stand-in for heaven. That was taken out because there were some religious people who thought, heaven can't be like, heaven's more of a geographical, like afterlife place. And so everyone could find a place here. That was taken out. But I'll share you, just because I'm on this heaven tangent, I'll tell you what my experience is. You know where heaven is? I can find it based on where I find hell. You know where I find hell? And I'm not theological. I'm not doing that. But you know where I find hell? Here and now. I will find here and now. I will find hell, and I will find it between my ears. And I will find it obsessing and worrying about the future and replaying the horrors and misery of the past. I have made my life a living hell. And where do I find heaven? Well, I can find it in the here and now. I can find that fourth dimension of existence in the here and now. But that's what it's pointing to, utopia. But also, if you look up utopia in my 1930s dictionary, it is a place of ideal perfection. So it says politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world only behaved. Now, I'll give you a bit of historical context. This book went out into the world after there was a very difficult political situation. It was the 18th Amendment was repealed, and that made the sale of alcohol legal again. And we all know that when there's dicey political stuff going on, what a strange foreign concept. But when that's going on, that it's dicey. And imagine that one set of people, so the alcohol reformers got their way, or one set of people got their way. Do you think everything would be okay? Or would there be other people that are like, hey, but I want it this way, and I want it my way, right? And so we're seeing that, like, man, if we can't even get a consensus at a home group, like the world will be happy with my wonderful ideas. I'm not even happy with my ideas, you know? And it says, the outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him. Now, bear with me. We're going to go on a journey. I'm throwing it out there is that if I do not crack safes, I do not have to face the criminal ramifications of being a safecracker. Therefore, not an outlaw, therefore, not wronged by society. And you might be like, Paige, we don't know his backstory. Keep in mind, I am somebody that would make up a backstory for the outlaw safecracker. I make up my history. It's good. It's good. But what I will say is, anyone here ever lock yourself out of your house or your apartment and have to get a locksmith? Oh, you guys know, that is expensive. It is expensive. That outlaw safecracker has a set of skills, a set of tools that is lucrative. He could have been using that for good. He could have been entrepreneurship is what he could have been doing. And it says, and the alcoholic who is locked up and who has lost all and is locked up. And aren't these all examples of how we are trying to be the director, trying to play God, and it doesn't work. And it's not working. And actually, going back to the sibling thing, because I'm off on this tangent in my brain, I'm probably saying it a little earlier than I am saying it a little earlier than I normally do, but we're on this train, off we go. Probably on a train soon too. But if you guys know what it's like, if you were growing up and you either were an older sibling or had an older sibling, or you had kids that had a significant age gap where they had a video game system. I'm describing something very specific. And as I describe it, you will know immediately if you know. So what is happening is the older sibling is going to be playing the video games. And what does the little sibling want? They want a turn. And you got to have enough of an age gap. And so what does the older sibling do? They give the younger one a controller that's not plugged in. And that is me living life trying to play God. I'm playing God with a controller that's not plugged in. And I'm frustrated because it's not working, but I'm doing things. I'm pushing the buttons, I'm flipping the triggers, I'm using the joystick, and it's not working. And it's frustrating, and things are happening, but it's not working. Man, my controller is not plugged in. That is what it's like when I'm playing God. And it says, whatever our protestations, so whatever our beliefs, our values, the things that are important to us, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, and our self-pity? I mean, primarily, it's all I think about. You know that saying, I'm not much, I'm all I think about, Yeah, I'm focused on me. Goes on to say selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Man, there's some spiritual jujitsu that just happened, or spiritual judo if you prefer. I like to, get all the martial arts. That we think is the root of our troubles. You see, I come to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, or the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous, or the rooms of Overeaters or Gamblers Anonymous, and I think my problem is that substance or that behavior. Well, actually, I first come into the rooms and I think it's him, my ex, and if you could just get him under control, that would be fine. But then, a little more self-awareness, you bamboozle me. Turns out I got a problem, rude. So I think my problem is booze. I think my problem is drugs. And you do this little judo flip on me. Whoa, whoa. My problem is the obsession of the mind. My problem is that I have a thought that happens when I am sober that takes me back again and again and again to that first drink or that first drug or that first compulsive action. That is my problem, and I can see that. And look, you're doing some more spiritual jujitsu. Then you're saying selfishness, self-centeredness, that is the root of our trouble. The root is the base of the plant. The root is what fuels the tree, fuels the plant. So what is the root? Is selfishness, self-centeredness? Wait, I thought you said it was the obsession of the mind. What do you mean it's selfishness, self-centeredness? Well, what fuels the obsession of the mind is that spiritual malady, that conscious sense of disconnect from God. And if you have ever stubbed your toe or, slammed your finger in the door, or, you know what I mean? If you've, you know what it's like when you hurt yourself? When I am living in that conscious sense of a disconnect from this power, I am in pain. And when I am in pain, all I can do is think about me and my pain, and I act for me and my pain. Now, selfishness is how I act in the world, and self-centered is how I think and perceive. So I've been saying this a whole lot lately, but selfish, an example of selfishness is if I sleep with your husband, I steal your car, and I pee on your carpet. And then self-centered is when I'm worried. So that's selfish. Self-centered is when I'm worried you won't like me because I did all those things. You guys get what I'm saying? So selfish is the action, self-centered is the lens and the perception and the thoughts. If you're wondering, I am just kidding. I would never do that. It was linoleum. That you guys know what's up. So that is the root of my troubles. The real root of my troubles is a conscious sense of disconnect from God and higher power, creator, spirit of the universe. And that is what we are going to treat. And we are going to treat that with a spiritual awakening. And it says, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. Now, I'm gonna do another bamboozle, another judo flip. So if you raise your hand for people pleaser and you don't want to like raise your hand for another one of those, wait a minute, don't feel free to not do that. But is there anyone here who has ever said, "Oh, I took my will back," I started driving the bus again? Anyone ever say that? You don't have to cop to it. Yeah, that's so nice of you, but you don't have to. I've got some news. Because what do I think? I think I took my will back, and I think, okay, like I'm gonna drive the bus a little, but just in this little area of my life, I'm driving. I got the steering wheel. I'm driving the bus. It's one of those big steering wheels because it's a bus, not one of these. I am a visual person. It's good I got the camera on this week because the internet's holding out, knock on wood. Driving the bus, and I think I'm doing okay. Yeah, it's not going to work so well with my addiction or my alcoholism or my whatever, but I can drive the bus of my finances or my career or my family. Look at me, I'm driving the bus. You're not driving the bus. You know who's driving the bus? 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. That is who is driving the bus. That's what has taken the will back. There's a madman at the wheel. I don't think they have their driver's license. The 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. That's who's driving. I think, okay, yeah, I'm not reasonable in this area, but those are driving. I am driven by those things. It goes on to say, as a result of being driven by these things, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. And all I can see is the retaliation. I cannot see that I stepped first. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation, but we invariably is pretty well always find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later put us in a position to be hurt. And you can make a little note in your book that we will come back to this in resentments column 4. Because what we will do is when we get to the 4th column of resentments, we will see where we made a decision, a selfish, self-seeking, self-centered, fear-based decision that put me in a position to have this resentment in the first place. And then we get freedom from it though, because if you're here and you're like, that doesn't sound like fun, I promise it is. Inventory. It's so good. All right. So it says, so our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. There's got to be a typo in here. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot. I don't think so, though he usually doesn't think so. I love reading it that way. So what happens is I think I describe this where I really believe people like us are a lot like canaries in the coal mine. Most human beings on earth experience some form of spiritual malady, some sort of spiritual sickness. And I talk about it a lot. I'm like, you don't think people have the spirit who aren't alcoholics or addicts have the spiritual malady? Oh, you go to your HOA, your PTA meeting, you'll find them. You go drive during rush hour, you will find those spiritually sick individuals, right? But you see, I'm a canary in the coal mine. And back in the day, what they would do is they would bring canaries in the coal mines that would chirp and chirp and chirp. But birds are incredibly sensitive to gases. And if poisonous gas was released, the birds would stop chirping. And I think that's what a lot of us are. We're the canaries in the coal mine. We are sensitive to this sense of separateness from this power. And the result of that is that we engage in our alcoholism or addiction or addictive behaviors. And also, by the way, I love doing this, coming up with different names for things, where it's like, welcome to the stage, South Wheel Run Riot. I've made little band logos for it because that's what I do when I have spare time, which I really don't have much of it. Uh, so it says above everything, above everything. So more important than anything else, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. You see, it is the selfishness that is driving us. See, I operate from this place of a conscious sense of disconnect from this power. It is painful. It is incredibly painful. Something's wrong, and I know something's wrong, but I don't know what it is. And I because I'm in pain, I'm centered upon myself and my thinking. And I'm acting in a selfish way in my action. And that's causing more pain. And the more pain that I'm in, the more selfish I am and the more self-centered I become. And it fuels this. And that is the stuff, that selfishness, self-centeredness, that is the stuff that is blocking me from this power, this relationship with a power, a connection with a power. And so what we need to do is we need to get rid of it. We need to clear it. I visualize it like a channel. I need to get the channel clear so that power can flow through. But it is being blocked off by my selfishness, my self-centeredness. So above everything, so more important than anything else, the most important thing above everything, we alcoholics must. And ever hear there are no musts? It's a little musty in here. Got a little musty. We should open a window. Must. We alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. And if that wasn't warning enough, we must, or it kills us. And there are many ways to die. Keep in mind, that of course to drink is to die, to relapse it is to die without question. But there are people that are dying in the rooms untreated, that are miserable, that are in pain, that are suffering, that are suicidal. Man, I've got to be free of this to live. It kills us. And it says God makes that possible. It is the power that I'm after that makes this possible. I can't do it on my own power. I cannot overcome self with self. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. I can't get rid of it on my own power. I want to do it. I want to kill the ego. I want to overcome selfishness and self-centeredness. I want to kill that ego, smash it, which is ironically an ego-feeding proposition. As soon as I'm like, I've killed the ego, boom, it regrows. You know what I mean? Yeah. So many of us. So we can't, there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. I need this power. That's what we're here to do, to clear away the stuff in me that's blocking me from this power. And it says many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore. So I had moral beliefs, I had philosophical beliefs, I wanted to be a good person, I had values and principles, but they held no power. There is no power in an idea. There is no power in an ideal. There is no power in simply the idea of that. Because it says, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. I wanted to be a good person. I desperately wanted to be a good person. But I could not show up to life to be the person that I desperately wanted to be. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. So I can't do it with self. And it says we had to have God's help. And so that paragraph is really hammering home like three pieces of information. I need to get rid of self. And I'm not talking about the self that we like. We're not talking about the self that likes birds. We're talking about that selfishness, self-centeredness. That's what we're talking about. I need to be free of selfishness, self-centeredness, or it will kill me. The second idea is that I cannot do it on my own power. I cannot overcome the selfishness on my own power. This third idea, I need God's power. I need a higher power. I need to rely on the power of the creator, the spirit of the universe. That is what that paragraph is saying. And so that leads us into where we're beginning to really get some meat and potatoes with the third step. But you have to come back next week where we'll talk about it then, because we're at the hour. So I'll stop the recording and we can wrap with a prayer. Thanks for coming.